Thanks for having us. Thanks for your interest. I'm really glad that you're also here, Milo, and that we together present the case study of Bettermile being used in GLS Netherlands. My name is Simon. We built up Bettermile in year number 6 now. And we are a software as a service provider for parcel logistics companies, which means we are providing software components that parcel logistics providers can integrate in their existing transport management systems and provide functionalities like address processing or routing, navigation for delivery drivers, as well as real-time tracking. And this will actually be the topic today. It's a pretty fresh topic. You probably observed the market. It just got out of the existence in about 1.5 years ago, where this topic really took off. And today I'll try to sum the topic up for you and also give you a background how this technologically works. So the beginning of the presentation will come from the user perspective. So what are the expectations when it comes to tracking? I'll then continue to the actual technological solution, how this can be technologically integrated operationally integrated in parcel logistics companies, and then we'll have the GLS Netherlands case study and Milo to sum it up, what it meant for him as a manager at GLS Netherlands and for the organization GLS. All right, let's start it out. I'm coming from the user perspective, as explained. We conducted a research just recently and asked 1,400 consignees in Germany, respectively, about their tracking behavior and their expectations. And 64% expect real-time tracking to be available with every shipments they receive. We've done this research for the second time. 12 months ago, it was 10 percentage point less. So it's a really, this topic is gaining traction. It's kind of becoming a hygiene factor. So it's kind of expected as the normal. And when it's available, almost every consignee also interacts with the real-time tracking. So we have 94% there, and that's for they do not interact with this app or with this website only once. They do it several times over the course of time. On the day of delivery, they refresh, they go back to the app, they read their notifications. And here you see the numbers, like the major, like roughly half of the study participants said they look up the site 3 to 5 times. What we actually know from our numbers that it's quite higher. So it differs from country to country about the user behavior, but we're talking about 10 to 15 revisits per session per consignee. So it's like an ongoing thing, and that's for obvious reasons, because the consignees do actually align their day based on this information. So they're making the decisions. Can I go to the shower now? Do I go shopping? Do I make home office or rather go to the office? That's decisions that are being made with the help of real-time tracking. And the real-time tracking is also like an orchestration platform where consignees actually want to reroute their parcels. Rerouting is not a new topic. You've known this. We've known this for years. Like send it to a parcel shop. Now the parcel lockers are gaining traction, or depending on country, it's also neighbor delivery, etc. possible. But they actually don't want to do this before the day of delivery. Actually, when the delivery van is out there, they want to do it then. And based on the real-time tracking. So when they see, okay, it's coming after 12, so I rather pick it up at the parcel shop later, right? So it's really those decisions that are being made with the help of real-time tracking. So if you take this as an overview, what are the needs is not the real-time tracking. Real-time tracking can be divided in 3 major parts. It's like in the beginning of the day, the expectation of the user is, or the use of the user is, they would roughly align their day planning. The time frame usually is a little bigger, starting with 1.5, 2.5 hours. So this is enough to do the rough day planning. Second step is the explicit alignment of activities. So do I go out for lunch now? Can I go shopping or not? And do I have to go a little bit earlier or later? That's the actual alignment that is happening. And then we must not forget there's a step number 3. And this is where those 10 to 15 revisits happen. It is the stage of excitement. It's not about anymore, do I go out for shopping or can I go out to lunch with my friends? It's about, I want to see it coming. And you know this feeling from when you hail an Uber, right? So when you see on the map that it's coming, and this is not, of course you make the decision, do I go downstairs to actually catch the Uber or can I wait in my kitchen? But it's also this kind of getting things going, right? See the progress, see them coming, and this level of excitement when you look out of the window and see, oh, now it's actually coming across the corner, the delivery vehicle, and I go downstairs and open the door, right? And this is something that hasn't been seen in parcel delivery before, and is really driving excitement, and it's actually great for the user. But, and now I come to a very important point that also Milo would talk about it later, it's not all these revisits, it's not only about the user, it's also about the productivity of the delivery company, because the success rate get higher, and the more the consignees revisit in this process, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to 15 times on average, we actually can readjust the information, right? And this is where the consignees have a certain tolerance when the time window is shifting back and forth, when it's starting big and then narrowing down. And what we can do is here create flexibility for the delivery driver. Because I'll talk about this a little bit later, like conceptually, if you narrow it down, you don't make a mistake, and the closer the delivery driver comes, his route and this tour gets more safe in terms of estimated time of arrival. And this is the kind of hand-in-hand process, right? The more the people visit in this process, the more the consignees visit in this process, the more flexibility we create for the driver to react on the reality of delivery out there. So this is basically how it looks at the example of GLS. It's pretty simple. We did a lot of A/B testing and improved it over the last 2 years. What you basically have is the position of the vehicle in real time. You have the number of remaining stops. You have an estimated time of arrival in a time box, and this time box starts bigger, gets smaller. So what we usually see is it's like machine learning in the background that calculates it, but it goes down to 15 minutes. And we start usually at a 1.5 hours of a time frame. So you might now say this. It's interesting to see the vehicle on a map, but what do I have on it? It's where do I profit from? What's the value? Or the number of remaining stops. What's the value when I see now it's 6 stops? Because I don't know, is 6 stops like a normal consignee? Does he know if it's an hour, or is it 2 hours, or is it 15 minutes? He just doesn't know. Estimated time of arrival, pretty clear. Is a important information. Why not just focusing on this? The rest is waste, right? It's not, because this drives the excitement. It's not about the actual number that goes here. It's making them excited because they come back and then see it's a 5 or a 4 or a 3. Or they come back and see the vehicle is coming closer, coming closer, coming closer. And this is, again, driving excitement means revisits. Revisits means flexibility for the operational process of the delivery company. So it's really a win-win situation that we can generate here. So where do we stand today? We were curious how good we are at providing this service, and we, next to the survey that I showed you the results of, we also shipped roughly 100 test parcels. Also in Germany, as a respective country, GLS, DHL, DPD, Amazon Logistics, and Hermes. But we also took some of the challengers, Instabox, Glocally, Lieferkunden, and Urbify, some of them rather local carriers that you might not know, but it's this neo-delivery companies out there, right? We tested this in 10 cities, not to have like a bias to specific urban areas. And yeah, so what you see here is a result, right? You don't have to go there by point by point, but you see we took we monitored every step on the day of delivery, what you were able to see in the tracking process of those delivery companies. And the size of the time frame in the beginning, was a time frame available or not? Did the time frame dynamically shift back and forward? Did it shrink down? To which size did it shrink down? And then in the end, was the vehicle visible on the map? And then of course in the end, was the time frame matched or not? So of course it doesn't make sense if I tell a consignee it's arriving at 4:45 and then it's arriving at 5:45 or even later. That creates rather frustration and not this experience of excitement, right? So you better communicate nothing than a wrong thing, right? So we tested this as well. And I don't want to go to the providers step by step, but it's interesting to see that Hermes as a provider, at least in Germany, has pretty much nothing. So they have like a time window that they provide in the beginning of the day that's pretty static, 3 to 4 hours. We have Urbify, it's a special case, like a premium provider where usually in the checkout process, the consignee is already able to select the 2-hour time frame. So you can argue that they don't really need real-time tracking because the consignee already knows when it will arrive, right? But what is really interesting is that the challengers that claim to be tech companies per se, that happen also to do some delivery, that they usually only provide basic ETAs, estimated time of arrivals. So their services level in terms of real-time tracking is quite low. And to be honest, I didn't expect that. And then we have DPD and Amazon Logistics, which use static systems. I'll come back to this later, what the conceptual technological background is. But they do provide time frames. Amazon does not shrink it down. It's highly available, so something between 70 to 90%. The same for the position of the vehicles on the map, but the reliability is not good. So in more than 50% of the cases, it just stops the real-time tracking. The estimated time of arrival time box is not met. And probably you've experienced that yourself with Amazon Logistics, that you saw the route and then suddenly it disappears and it says it will arrive until the end of the day. You know, a kind of fallback option that can be pretty frustrating if you gave an estimation before. And then there's a kind of top-notch area with DHL. They're doing a pretty good job here. When you see in DHL vehicles, they have the secondary screens on the windshields, and they really train the drivers, follow the navigation, which is like the prerequisite to make a proper and dynamic real-time tracking system. But GLS is even a little bit better. It has a higher range of vehicles or of parcels actually cover this real-time tracking. Yeah, just to give you an overview, if you want to do it graphically, you can do it thus. If you compare refresh rate, excitement level, predictability and reliability, this is the top-notch field. Then we have this kind of medium field, the static medium field, and then we have those who haven't really started this technological but also operational transformation process that is necessary to provide real-time tracking. So where are we going? To be honest, this real-time tracking experience is not, the expectation from the user is not created by parcel logistics companies. It is created by Uber, by Wolt, by other food, grocery, or other delivery companies that are out there. and that actually train our behavior and expectations. We want to see the vehicle. And the consignee, they don't care if it's a pizza delivery guy who's delivering 1 or maximum 2 stops, or if it's a parcel delivery driver who has like 100 or 150 stops. He doesn't care that it's way more complex to actually calculate the estimated time of arrival for 150 stops, obviously, because a lot can happen in between, right? But that's where the expectation is heading to. Where it's coming from, it's also heading to. So what we will see in the future will probably be a lot of deep integration with the operating systems of the smartphone providers. I mean, almost all the users come via smartphone. So you know this from Uber, from flights, from food delivery. So integrated in the home screen directly, this information going forward. You do not need to open an app, or you do not need to open a microsite. Another thing most probably will be the correction of location. So you know this from Uber, where you can say, pick me up at that corner, and you kind of walk towards the corner because you know it's easier for traffic for the guy to pick you up. It will pretty sure happen that the same thing will be implemented in parcel logistics, right? This is the door where you need to enter. This is my what 3 words address that I add to my normal address, etc. And then probably we will dive into the sphere of premium upgrades. Most probably not in every country. The willingness to pay is for sure different from country to country, but we see this already in the Nordics and also in the Netherlands, how the first players dive into this topic, which makes the whole navigation/tracking technological challenge even more difficult. Right? Yeah, and fourth but not least, I think towards excitement in the very last minutes of delivery, there will happen a lot, like visually, you know. This is where things will go. I'm pretty convinced, and they don't care if it's a pizza or a parcel. They want to see it like that, and we can make use of this effect because they look onto the device more often, and they're open the door. First delivery attempts will be higher, and the actual handover times will be shorter. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that real-time tracking, due to its reach, the sheer millions of users that are using it every day, for example, at GLS Netherlands, it generates itself to be an orchestration platform for parcel delivery. A turntable where the consignees can decide, do I stay, do I go, do I redirect to out-of-home options, to Pudo, or etc. And both parties, the consignee as well as the parcel delivery company, can make use of that. So if you're interested in the full results of the real-time tracking study, and that's the first of its kind, feel free to pick one up. We have a limited amount of printed copies at the Bettermile booth, B84. It's just there in the end, or talk to some of my colleagues that are here in the front row. And you can take it home. It's like 30 pages extensive material about the real-time tracking and how to do it. So it could be potentially interesting for you. So I'll now dive into the actual solutions. What do delivery companies and tech providers do have to do to make this happen? And now, watch out, I'll do a nerd dive. Yeah. So I'll go through it fast. If you have any further questions, please approach me afterwards. It's really some nerdy topics that are not for everyone, but it's possibly interesting for you. So what we get from the parcel delivery companies as Bettermile is a list of addresses by tour, right? And as you probably know, those addresses are a nightmare. So they're written differently. They do not comply to any regulation or field. The street fields are mixed up with the name fields, etc. So usually you cannot work with those addresses, at least when you geocode them, so define where's the pin on the map, you get wrong results or bad results. So what we do is we destroy the structure of the addresses and parse them and recompose them to real addresses, right? I brought you an example from Italy, like how it's originally, it was the raw, what we call the raw address, how originally the consignee was writing it, or it's in the transport management system, and how in the end we converted it with the help of local databases. So we call this process normalization, right? So in the end, you have a n=1 address that you can write to a database. And when you have this normalized address, then you can ask geocoders, map providers out there. And we do not only ask one map provider, we rather ask 3 or 4 different providers, compare the results. I brought you an example of here in Google Maps in Munich. So the green dots they have the same result, but the red dots they're a little bit different, right? They're 50 meters off. And this makes our system think and makes our system learn. And we can decide which one is better. Because when you navigate a driver, you better have the right geo-coordinate, because otherwise the driver will be really frustrated. And then in the end, the real-time tracking doesn't really work, right, for the consignee. So you have to cover the whole value chain. So let's say we ask those and we have the correct address points on a map. They're valid. And then we create the optimized sequence, which means this is how, like, this traveling salesman problem, it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's standard algorithms that you can buy in the market. And then you calculate the route in between, right, based on certain parameters. And then you have pretty much all parts of the recipe that are necessary to calculate the ETA. And you can calculate it by minute, right? Even by second. The system will answer you by second when you potentially will arrive, or most probably will arrive. But of course, the system only knows what it knows. And a very big impact factor is, for example, the stop time. So you have to learn about the stop time. How long does usually a driver stop at a certain address? And that's what our system is learning. But the biggest challenge is not the stop time. The biggest challenge is the reality. In the moment the driver leaves the premise of the depot or the warehouse, the reality is a different one. Traffic changed, consignees behave differently, they reroute their parcel to the locker, now they have to take a different route. The whole thing messes up, right? And this is where you have basically 2 options conceptually. Option 1 is you play safe and enforce the driver. This, as you know, from DPD predict system, for example, right? So you say, okay, You cannot follow the road, but I want you to follow the road. So please exactly go there, and otherwise I do not let you scan and deliver the parcel, right? And then the reality still is there. So the traffic is different, consignee behavior is different, etc. So what you do is you build the time box rather big, right? And that's what you saw in the research results with Amazon Logistics and DPD. Big time frame, but still a low quota of actually matching those time frames, because they do it in a static way. Or this is the Amazon example that you probably know. They just turn it off, right? So luckily there's an option B. And the option B incorporates flexibility for the driver. So they go out of the warehouse and then, or the depot, and then they can change their route based on the actual results. And often they know better. Especially experienced drivers, they know better. So we would give them a recommendation, say, you can save 15 minutes if you go this path and change the sequence of the pack, right? Of the deliveries. And then they could say, yeah, I want to accept, but no, I can't, because my trunk is too full and I cannot access the parcel, right? You can only make these decisions on the spot and cooperate with the driver, right? And that's what we're doing, aligning the route, like recalculating every second in the background, communicating with the driver, give him suggestions. Sometimes we just apply it because it's obviously the better way, and then guiding them through the day, but incorporating their experience. And the good effect is that the ETAs, they adjust through the day, obviously, but we remember the tolerance that the consignees have about shifting and time frames getting smaller over time. And this is where we create the flexibility, because then in the end, even if those time changes and get recalculated, we still have the option to shift it back and forth and narrow it down. This is how it looks basically from the driver perspective. Having an overview, having the possibility to those addresses that are still faulty to correct them, see their deliveries.
It is now 5 prepare for your next one-to-one meeting
and the list of deliveries, right, that they follow. And what you see here, for example, is a time frame conflict management, which means they have set a time frame to 10. Now it's 9:59. You cannot reach it. System says rather you go there right now, or you take it off the list and deliver it later. You know, this is the flexibility that is created for the driver. All right. And this is the prerequisite to generate the data that we can leverage and create reliability for the consignee. It's a hand-in-hand process for user experience and productivity. So I have a little video, but I'll jump over it because we probably am running out of time. But you can check out the video at bettermile.com and see like the story of a delivery driver, how they use it over the day. So if you look at the market today, and that's what you also could see in the results of the study, there are basically three paradigms that delivery companies follow. This is the, let's say, old one. The parcel delivery companies, they start their conveyor belt. Delivery drivers pick their parcels. The delivery company stops the conveyor belt, and then they say, it's your problem, and let them go. They have subcontractors usually, and then they say, it's your problem. And this is still what's happening today with a lot of companies. So the whole experience about how to drive the tour is fully dependent on the driver's experience. If a new driver has to jump in, big problem. If something happens on tour, big problem. You cannot create a good user experience, calculate ETAs because you don't know how the delivery driver goes, right? And also the productivity potential in terms of, would there be a faster route to deliver the parcels? You do not have this leverage here. There is a paradigm number 2, and that's what you saw with Amazon Logistics and DPD, is static sequencing. You calculate the route once in the morning, you load the vehicle with this, and then you kind of enforce the driver to follow the sequence, and you try to build a time box around these estimated time of arrivals and hope they match, right? This is still a better UX that you have with the first paradigm, and it also promises some productivity, but this productivity gets eaten up during the day by the reality because things change, right? And you kind of have to enforce drivers because then otherwise the system doesn't work. And this is the third dynamic, the third paradigm. So you have the dynamic orchestration, right? And which is technologically quite challenging. So to give you an insight, we recalculate a route in the background, in the cloud, for one tour roughly 1,000 times per day. Constant data exchange. We constantly monitor the event. What's happening? Got this parcel delivered. We're monitoring the geofences. So a lot of things are happening in the background to actually make this dynamic orchestration happen, which leverages strong consignee user experience, a relatively high productivity loop that you can leverage, and you can incorporate the driver experience, even digitize and save the driver experience instead of and lower the dependency on actually the driver experience. This is pretty interesting for parcel delivery companies. So how does this technologically integrate into transport management systems or other technological systems of parcel delivery companies? So basically what Bettermile provides is 3 pillars. It is Better Places, which takes care of what I just showed you of the address cleaning, the address normalization, and the geocoding. That can be integrated via API into delivery companies and processes. It's Better Route, which is whether an app or deep integration via API or SDK into the delivery app of delivery companies. We even provide hardware if necessary with our partner Samsung or Cetus. And then there is better tracking, the whole machine learning system in the background and respective white label front ends or APIs, so delivery companies can create their own front ends or integrate it into their existing tracking websites. So There's also a loop for the actual retailers. So I brought you some examples from customers who white label this. So shipping customers use this reach that are generated, these 10 to 15 revisits they use for retargeting, for advertising their products or their brands. So it's not necessarily only the parcel delivery company that provides the system. It can also be the actual brands doing this. To give you an idea, it's roughly 2.5 million parcels we are processing every day, 4.5 million addresses that we're processing, and about 2.5 million API requests on the better tracking product. Yeah, so to sum it up, this is Bettermile. This is the technological modules that are integrated. And yeah, we're happy that GLS Netherlands actually using the product, and also glad to have Milo over today, and like from a parcel delivery point of view, from an operational company point of view, explaining the product.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me, all of you. Okay. Thank you. And now it's, of course, my pleasure to use this fantastic product. And it sounds quite simple. Asked the drivers to use it and they're all happy. But that's not the case. That is fantasy. And that's also proven that's a project. And so we did in the beginning a pilot in one depot for 3 months already to really have it in the company. But because we have a big B2B history, we are GLS Netherlands 10 years ago, we did nearly only B2B. The drivers there knew every address. They knew every movement. When somebody had a new address, they knew it already before they go on tour. And they had, of course, an excellent delivery quality because they could even call the recipient and say, hey, I'm there, should I deliver it at your neighbors or whatever? And that changed completely in the last 10 years, especially in the GLS Netherlands. And we turned from, I think, 70% B2B addresses now to 70% B2C addresses. Because also the B2B senders have more and more channels to B2C. And that is what you see. That's the new way. And that's logical. They had fast turnaround times. They knew exactly where they were. And the tour was every day the same and every day very predictable. And therefore, there was also big driver stability. That changed over the time. We have an increased number of stops. That's dramatically increased, by the way. But also the number of parcels per stop has decreased enormously. 98% in the Netherlands is now a single stop. That does not only have to do with the B2C, but also with the fact that some companies and retailers have less stock than they had before they bought more, and now they buy piece by piece. And what we have, due to several reasons, a high driver churn or fluctuation. And that is also because it's not so easy to become a driver and be productive within, say, 2 or 3 weeks. And then they compare themselves to colleagues and say, hey, I'm not able to do more than 100 stops. This is not my occupation. I should not do this. So we needed to support the drivers as well. So the initial goal of the whole project was indeed navigation for the productivity and the quality control of the drivers. What we have to do with more stakeholders, as you can understand, we have the drivers as a stakeholder, we have the recipients as a stakeholder, and we have the customers, the senders as a stakeholder. This is the overview of the Netherlands. And what we did in the 3 months pilot in Stein was in the south. Were really nice people, also a really nice area, I can promise you. And there we did the pilot. And we tried to get every bug out. We tried to finish it and have it completely perfectly attached to our system before we spread it out to the other depots. So this was only 3 months. These depots all took 10 days, I think, because we prepared them. We made the drivers aware that Bettermile was coming up front, so they were asking for it. They were really asking, when is it coming and when am I? And the other thing is that we trained the drivers, the new drivers and the young drivers, they accept it very fast, just like your navigation system in your car. But the older drivers that were all longer occupied within GLS, that was not so easy, to be honest. Until they found out the real-time tracking effect, because all of a sudden some people had opened the door already. Normally they were ringing like hell and were impatient, and now people had opened the door already. So they become really enthusiastic and try to follow the scheme. And of course, it's also their little game to beat the Tour of Simon. So if they have a more clever way, then they will absolutely try that more clever way and can push a button and say, hey, I was more clever. And then he recognizes it. And the tour is getting optimized. Where I am right now. So what we now have is a faster onboarding for new drivers, and they are happy because within a week they are up and running and have, say, 80% of their production already, and that's really important because then we also can keep them, and they are having a good feedback also from their colleagues. We have a better guidance, of course, and we have more ease of mind, but that is not only for the driver, to be honest, that is for the whole company. And the consignee experience, we should not underestimate. This excitement, of course, what Simon was talking about, that's right. But it is all about managing the expectations. And what we found out is that consignees, it doesn't matter if they are B2B or B2C, by the way. I have to say, B2B expectations are becoming more and more comparable to B2C expectations. We should not underestimate that. They are following and they say, if you promise me to be there between 3 and 4, you have to be there between 3 and 4. But if they can also follow the car, they have this, how do you call it, more tolerance, because they see that he has to do 6 stops, and then they know they're not waiting, they can see it, and they get excited. And if they are 10 minutes late, hopefully not, they are not so angry about that. So, and then, so the first attempt rate is much higher, that is proven. We see that we have shorter stop times because a lot of doors are already open, GLS opens the doors, and we have a lot of better customer satisfaction. That is the customer satisfaction on both ways, the sender and the recipient. And that gives this flywheel of production and perfection and quality. And that is the user experience is quite important, but the user experience is not only for the recipient, it's also for the driver, and it's indirectly also for the customer. And the customer is not asked why is GLS late today, because they know already themselves. That helps us enormously. So what we see, we do Trustpilot, by the way, and we do Trustpilot on the way we should use Trustpilot. So we ask for every review. So not only the good reviews, all reviews, and you can find it also, it's open. And there, the number of questions about the time is increasing dramatically. And you see the number of compliments, because you were on time, is increasing as dramatically as well. And that is really, really nice. So we are quite happy with that. So the number of complaints on the ETA is much less than before. We had the fixed time frame as well in former times. So that reduced. And the WIMP request, that is the nice abbreviation of where is my parcel, turned down as well, because people can look it up themselves. And they do that like automatically. They're pushing and refreshing and looking, oh, it's there already, and they are happy to do that. Sometimes maybe they get bored on other things and they do that as well. But we see in the Netherlands that it's between 10 and 11 times that they click on the button to refresh. 10 and 11 times, can you imagine? So the Trustpilot score on the depots that we started with did increase with 0.2 approximately. And that is in our business, that is not really bad. That is good, I think. So we are quite happy with that. So everybody was looking against. There was a big barrier in the minds of people to introduce the real-time tracking, to introduce Bettermile. By the way, we use the second screen version, so it's not on one device. They have a second screen in their car, and now everybody is asking for it. And that's not only in the Netherlands. My colleagues in GLS, they are adapting it country by country, to be honest. And you see that it is widespread already, and also in Americas and also in Canada, we use Bettermile. So this is what I wanted to tell you, and we are quite happy with the introduction. We did really make a big step in reliance for customers. So thank you so much. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry, you wanted to ask.
So if there are any questions, we have the hand mic available.
No questions?
No questions, or did I, Then we were completely clear on everything, Simon.
All good?
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.